So, let's get right into it. We're going to talk about Joe Rogan, one of the biggest voices out there, and his recent, very public exploration of Christianity. But the real question here is bigger than just one person. Is this just his own journey, or is he kind of like the canary in the coal mine for a much larger cultural shift?
To understand the vibe, let's start with the number, 365. According to our source material, that's how many times the phrase "fear not" appears in the Bible, one for every single day of the year. You can probably see the appeal, right? In a world that feels pretty chaotic, that kind of constant reassurance is a powerful thing to search for.
And it seems like this search is leading to some pretty unexpected places. The source material we're looking at claims that young people are actually converting to Christianity at higher rates than their parents. Now, that's a big deal because for a very long time, that trend was going in the complete opposite direction. This isn't just a local thing either. It's reportedly happening across the globe.
And that, of course, brings us to the guy at the center of this conversation, Joe Rogan. He's maybe an unlikely poster child for a religious resurgence, but he's definitely a very public face for this renewed interest in ancient faith.
So where did all this talk start? Well, one of the first big claims came from a Christian apologist cited in our source. He stated pretty plainly that he'd been in touch with Rogan and could say for a fact that he's attending church, and that it's been a consistent thing, not just a one-off.
And look, this isn't just someone talking about him. Rogan confirmed it himself. He went on record saying he's been going to church for the last, quote, 3 or 4 years. So that takes it right out of the realm of rumor and into, okay, this is actually happening.
But here's where it gets really nuanced. His interest isn't exactly straightforward. He seems to draw a very clear line in the sand between the teachings of Christianity and the miracles. Let's break that down.
On the one hand, he has this incredible respect for the core message. Talking about Jesus' teachings, he says, I can't find a flaw in the way he tells you to live life. He calls it a beautiful way to live, which shows he's really focused on the ethical and moral framework.
And it's not just an abstract idea for him. He's seeing the results in the real world. He talks about the people he goes to church with and is just really struck by how kind and polite they are. For him, it's proof that on a practical level, it just works.
So this lays out that core tension perfectly. He's all in on admiring the teachings, the lifestyle, the community. But when you ask if he believes in the supernatural stuff, people coming back from the dead, Moses parting the Red Sea, his answer is a pretty clear, not really. He seems to see them as important stories, maybe with a kernel of truth, but not as literal history.
Okay, so that's the what. But what about the why? Why is this happening now? Well, the source suggests there are some bigger cultural forces at play, both for Rogan and for this broader trend.
And it seems to boil down to a few key things. First, people are looking for some kind of stability in a world that just feels more and more chaotic. Second, there's this pull towards what the source calls the beauty and the truth of antiquity, something ancient that stood the test of time. And third, just like we saw with Rogan, there's the simple, powerful draw of a kind, structured community. But there's another layer to Rogan's interest, and this one's a little stranger. It's not just the moral teachings of the New Testament. He's also completely captivated by some of the most bizarre, hard-to-explain visions in the Old Testament.
He points specifically to the book of Ezekiel. He says he's absolutely fascinated by the descriptions in it because they sound less like ancient scripture and more like, well, something from another world. And you can see why he's hooked. I mean, the text describes a wheel within a wheel, fire flashing forth continually, and gleaming metal. Then, out of this metal thing come these 4 living creatures that dart around like a flash of lightning. It is an incredibly weird and vivid account.
This all leads Rogan to ask the very direct, very simple question, what the hell is that? He points out how this vision, written down thousands of years ago, sounds an awful lot like what we would now call a UFO experience. It's that element of an unsolved ancient mystery that really seems to grab him.
So, let's zoom back out for a second. We've seen Rogan's complicated relationship with all this. He admires the ethics, questions the miracles, and is totally fascinated by the mysteries. How does our source material frame this in the bigger picture? Ultimately, the source positions Rogan's journey as this incredible billboard for a much wider cultural search. It suggests this isn't really just about one religion or one public figure. It's a sign of a widespread hunger that people have for meaning, for purpose, and for something authentic in our modern world.
And that leaves us with the big question we started with. When someone with a massive platform like Joe Rogan publicly explores faith,
Are we just watching one person's private spiritual journey from the cheap seats? Or, as the source suggests, could we be seeing the early signs of a much more significant cultural shift? Definitely something to think about.